weekend, I want to get a good hike in.
Okay.
It's been pretty rainy these past few days and haven't been able to get on the trails, but I want to go hiking.
I am probably heading up to Lake Placid, New York. But I was looking at things to do there. Hiking's on the list, so maybe it's in my future.
Shake the magic ball mask.
I know. Anyways, I'm really looking forward to talking about cyber insurance today.
Yeah, let's talk cyber insurance.
Last week's webinar was super interesting for me, not having a whole ton of background with cyber insurance and cyber insurance policies, so it was great to hear, from our one of our executive advisors, Larry, as well as a representative from Rand Insurance, Matheson, and hear everything there was to know about cyber insurance.
Yeah, I'm so glad they were able to come out and chat a bit. A lot of great information, a lot of great tips.
Yes.
What was your biggest takeaway?
My favorite quote, all-time favorite quote, was that insurance is your last defense, not a strategy. That really resonated with me because it's basically saying an insurance policy, just like any other kind of insurance policy, right? You don't have health insurance and then do extreme risky things, take horrible care of yourself, smoke 6 packs a day, you have to do the groundwork so that you don't need that insurance policy. It's really just a soft landing or a cushion in the event that something happens. So I think it was, that stood out to me because cybersecurity is a buzzword, it's a buzz topic nowadays. And so with cyber insurance and really honing in on the fact that the insurance policy is the last thing, was big because it's the groundwork, it's the cybersecurity stuff that you do, that's your strategy.
Yeah, and it sets a proactive mindset.
Absolutely.
You're working ahead, you don't, like you said, you don't want to smoke a pack of cigarettes a day.
Yeah.
You want to make sure you're taking care of yourself, taking care of your cybersecurity. And I mean, you have to ultimately, because cybersecurity is a major risk nowadays, as Larry said.
Yep.
And there's so much out there that in the event of something happening and lawyers get involved, are they going to call you negligent? Are you going to say you were irresponsible if you didn't take those preliminary steps?
Yeah, and I mean, there's a huge difference between negligent and irresponsible, which Larry said it, and at first I was like, what? Wait, did he say that? But, it's true. If you don't put any cybersecurity controls in place, that's negligence, right? But if you have the controls in place and a super hacker found kind of backdoor or some hole into your system, I think, talking to our CEO Foster about it once, he said he was once doing a vulnerability scan and found a hole in someone's system through their smart thermostat. So there's crazy ways people can get into your network. And that's just being irresponsible, right? There were probably things that an organization could do to catch that. But they didn't, and that's why the attack occurred. So I would definitely rather be, if you had to choose between negligent and irresponsible, but mostly I'd like to be prepared.
Yeah. And for businesses that don't have compliance in place, what can they do to find out where to start, how to start, what sort of foundation to follow?
Yeah, I think what both Larry and Maston talked about in a lot of detail during the webinar is the NIST cybersecurity framework, and it basically gives a very detailed, very robust guideline that companies can follow in terms of what cybersecurity solutions to put in place, what to implement, what to have. If there isn't any kind of compliance requirements or regulations around their industry or where they operate their business. But even further, NIST is actually the foundation of many of the existing compliances. So you'll see, if you look at CMMC compliance, even CMMC 2.0 now, you'll see that a big chunk of it is referring to NIST controls. So it's definitely across the board a great framework to follow, and it's one, as Matheson explained, that a lot of insurance companies, most insurers will look for to see, has this organization implemented NIST CSF? And if so, they become all that much more easier to be insured because they have those safeguards in place.
That's right. Especially for companies in like highly regulated industries, healthcare, manufacturing, all of that. And I know Matheson detailed his sort of like must-haves, like requirements you should have in place. I know some he mentioned were like MFA, security awareness training, endpoint detection response. What were the others?
I think he also touched on segregated backups,
Yeah.
vulnerability scanning, next-gen antivirus, and then kind of talked about the additional things that you could have as well.
The incident response plan and business continuity
Yes.
plan.
You know, I really liked and appreciated that he took the time to also break down kind of what are the most common types of coverages that you'll come across, right? Kind of explaining all of that for us. And he talked about first party coverage, third party coverage, and then breach response. Kind of in a nutshell, first party coverage really covers the direct costs in the case of an incident. So the immediate incident response, any data recovery, the cost of downtime, so not being able to operate your business, and then even it goes as far to cover reputational damage. So obviously if you have a security incident, your reputation is going to take a little bit of a hit, and depending on what kind of personal information you have or you store, that reputational damage could just multiply. So that's kind of how he described first party coverage. For third party coverage, that's more, you know, in how he talked about it, like lawsuits and fines, right? So helping cover those kind of results of an incident. And then the last thing he talked about was breach response, which is basically, he explained as like notification expenses and breach response costs. And that when he said sometimes you'll see kind of rolled into another coverage option, but then in some instances it will be a totally separate coverage option that's an addition to your policy. So lots of kind of different ways that different companies go about cyber insurance.
Yeah, and then I mean different companies and their policies differ from one another, so you just have to see which one is best for you.
Right, and like I think the other thing that Matheson said, and I actually think he kind of opened with this, but really explaining that cybersecurity is a business risk, not an IT issue. I think that's huge because as soon as you say cybersecurity, like, what do you think about? You just think IT.
I don't even know.
Yeah. Yeah, you're like, oh, the IT person probably. And to be honest, people are probably like, oh, my IT guy, right?
Yes.
Like, it goes as far as that. So, but it's not. Cybersecurity right now should be treated like any other business risk, and your cybersecurity strategy is really part of your risk management strategy now.
It is. Especially within this framework, it's basically like a risk framework.
Yep, and it makes sure you have those controls in place so you're minimizing that risk and setting your business up for success. And that's what we love to do to help our clients out.
That's right.
So, should we play?
Let's go.